Everybody, excited to be here, especially during this kind of lockdown that we're all experiencing, kind of uncharted water. And as we came together as a team, we said, gosh, you know, I just delivered this presentation, as Robert said, in front of 400 people. And as we're getting our head around this COVID-19 sort of thing that we're all experiencing, this is really an opportunity, if you've been following Robert and I, of really taking a break and a rest, reflection, and sort of planning where we're all heading. And they said, gosh, it'd be perfect timing for you to deliver what you just did in St. Louis. So excited about this. Hopefully you all get a ton of value. And as Robert said, I've got some really, really cool tools that I shared with this group in St. Louis. There were about 400 people. So I'm going to pretty much give you exactly what I did in St. Louis. And we'll have a lot of fun. Now, I'm not going to answer questions while we go through this. This is probably about an hour, and you can type in questions, and then I'll be doing some Q&A at the end. But this is really for all of you, all of our loyal followers of RealEstateInvestor.com, and who have followed me for a long time on my podcast, RealEstateInvestor.com Huddle, and also Robert Syfert, Investor PO, and super excited. So today, I'm going to be covering how to build a business that works for you. And it's a business visioning of really, so many of us get stuck on the hobbit wheel of working so hard and becoming a slave to our business. And gosh, I understand firsthand. And so I want to really walk through some very, very specific things that have worked for me and for a lot of people that we've coached over the years. It's a proven formula, and I'm going to give you my very best. But the way I want to start it is I was actually on stage, and I shared this, and everybody kind of laughed. So I'll share with you right now. So I just turned 51, actually just a couple of days ago, had my birthday. And, you know, getting to this kind of stage in life, I've been working out, and I got a personal trainer, which I always get a coach in my life in a particular area that I want to improve. And been working out, getting a better body, losing some weight, getting some muscles, and feeling good about myself. My wife calls it my midlife crisis, and she said, hey, but keep it up. And anyway, so I get on the plane, and I'm flying out to St. Louis, and I walk down the aisle to find my seat. And there's kind of this attractive looking lady, probably half my age, and she's looking at me and smiles, and I catch her eye. And she goes, excuse me, are you a professional bodybuilder? And anyway, that's probably the best thing a 51-year-old guy who's been working out could hear, right? So I'm feeling all good about myself. I probably turned a little bright red, and I start to answer her. And anyway, she looks at me kind of funny, and I turn around, and here is this monster, totally yoked bodybuilder, like 3 times the size of me, right behind me. And I'm so glad I didn't say anything. But anyway, what a way to be humbled, right? So anyway, I thought I'd share that little humbling experience with all of you as we get started. So we're going to cover building a business that works for you. And the way I want to start it, and the way I did this for everybody, give me just a second, is I'm going to ask a few questions, and I want you to think about these. But this last year, how many hours did each of you work in your business or businesses? How many of you, I can't see you, I asked the audience, I said, how many of you worked at least 40 hours a week on average last year? And I got about 90% of the room. And then how many of you actually worked at least 45 hours a week? And most of the hands stayed raised. And I ask all of you, how many of you worked at least 60 hours in your business last year per week, 60 hours or more? And it was pretty incredible. There were probably about 50% of the room that had their hands raised. So the next question I asked, and I want to ask each of you, is how many weeks of vacation each of you took last year? How many weeks? Was it how many people took over 2 weeks of vacation? And when I'm talking about vacation, I'm saying you were totally checked out. You weren't like working your business, closing deals. you were truly on vacation, completely checked out, and your business continued to operate without you? And how many of you actually got at least 4 weeks of vacation? And how many of you actually got at least 12 weeks of vacation last year? So 12 weeks or more, totally checked out to be able to do the things that you love. And obviously, if you're following this live, the picture of a beach, wherever your favorite place or places is. And I had almost nobody in the room, really over 12 weeks. So one of my big promises by the end of today's presentation, I'm going to show you how to actually win back a minimum of 12 weeks a year this next year with a very, very simple process. I'm going to give you a tool on how to do that. And it's worked for everybody that I've given this to that's implemented it. I'm going to get you back just for watching this presentation for the next hour, how to get 12 weeks of your 12 weeks of your time back, whether you want to put it on vacation, go wherever you want, and how to do it with the business that's still performing. So the next question, as part of a vision, and you'll understand where I'm heading with this in a minute, I want each of you, I had everybody in the live audience do this, but I'm going to ask you, since we're remote, to kind of close your eyes for a second. Just close your eyes for a second. And if you had the perfect business, and in 12 months from now, you're kind of looking back, and you're looking back at this year, how many hours would be just awesome that would be preferred that you worked in your business? The number of hours per week. Would it be 10? Would it be 20? Would it be 30, 40, whatever those number of hours? And I want you to kind of get that mental picture of how many hours with a business that's performing, that's starting to give you the lifestyle that you want. And then I want you to think about the number of weeks of vacation that you'd like to take. With a performing business fully checked out, you had a team in place to do the things that you wanted to do, that you could actually enjoy life, all right? Think of the number of weeks. And once you have that, I'm going to ask you to open your eyes, and on Facebook, if you're on Facebook, or if you're following us on live Zoom right now, I'd like you to just experience that process and be thinking of some of the feelings that you had when you're working those number of hours, whether it's 10 hours a week on average, and you're taking this vacation, some of those feelings that you have. And I'm going to look at those as we go, and you're posting them on either Facebook or in live chat if you're on Zoom. And I want to take a minute. This is really something that I think is a start of a process. All right, I'm hearing and seeing happy. You feel peace, peace of mind. Love, actually, that's interesting. So a feeling of love, security, importance. All right, so this, having lived up to my potential, I want everyone to realize that this is the very first stage of building a business that works for you, is the visioning piece of being able to experience what it looks like in the future. And it is not a hard effort. And every business, every person, you having a picture of what you want is super, super important. And I want you to continue to keep that in mind, because as we go through this, building a business that works for you is not a hard effort. It is a very specific effort, but it's a lot of fun. And we're going to go through that here in the next short time of exactly how to build this business for you. All right. So I'm here today to impact lives. A lot of us are kind of in a fork in the road, and I'm really here to really impact the life and change people's lives, specifically for people that have eyes to see and ears to hear. Those that are willing to listen to what I say and then take action off of it. A good mentor of mine, he said something super important. You can write this down. Education without implementation is just expensive entertainment. Education without implementation. And so the only way to get a life that works for you is to basically take what you're hearing and then taking massive action off of it. And what I'm going to show you is this is not a lot of effort, and this is a way to get everybody to win their life back be able to become more financially independent and get off of the rabbit wheel. So I want to share a story of a guy that I know, and this guy, many of you will probably be able to relate to this individual, especially with all of us right now in this COVID experience and looking back at our life. I think a lot of us are so connected, and a lot of us have the very similar personality. So I want to share a story of a guy that actually worked in corporate America. In fact, he grew up in a family that was very focused on, getting a good education, working hard, making money, getting a good job. Didn't matter whether he liked it or not, and then had a family. This person had two daughters, two little daughters that were, and a wife and a family. And this person got stuck and was an absolute workaholic, working for corporate America prior to 2004. He traveled all over the country, worked hours, 60, 80-hour weeks, and wanted a new life, and went to a big seminar, like a lot of us, and got excited about real estate. He read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, got excited about the idea of passive income, mailbox money, where we could actually have the life of freedom. And what happened is this individual didn't know anything other than working hard. And one of the things that he learned, like so many of us, and I ask if you relate to this person, is we want a new life. Real estate is the vehicle. And then we remanifest everything that we knew, we remanifested in our own business. We became workaholics, right? Everybody, even if we had a staff or a team, everything came through us. And we were constantly spinning plates. So this individual from 2004 to really the end of 2008, beginning of 2009, became a massive workaholic. Now, he was successful in real estate, but he gained a lot of weight. He was unhappy as he never spent time with his family. And really, it was his family that sacrificed. And then the real estate market crashed in 2008, beginning of 2009, and this person almost went bankrupt. One of the hardest things that this individual had was he had to lay off a staff. And I know a lot of us, especially right now, have a team. One of the hardest things that this individual had to do was lay people off, people in his office that he loved. So he started again in 2009 and built another business in real estate and did it again. And so 2009 to 2013, his family still suffered. He made money, and he started to get some of the toys back that he lost in 2009, but he remanifested everything that he knew. And it wasn't until 2013 that this individual had an absolute epiphany that said, I cannot do this. This is total insanity. And I ask all of you if any of you relate to this individual, because there's the old Albert Einstein quote, and I think it is absolutely relevant. A lot of us have gone numb to this because we've heard it before. But insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And this particular individual did it over and over again, and he's thinking he was going to get different results, and became nothing but a workaholic and became a slave to his business. And so many of us, actually, that happens. And it was this epiphany that actually made a massive change. And I'm going to walk you through in a little while. I'm going to go back to this individual and share, but some of you may relate to that. So we're all at a fork in the road. A fork in the road, especially right now with this COVID virus thing. And I want to share some disheartening news. And each of you that are following us right now and following this video, how many of you have been in business for less than 5 years? And I can't see you, but you can put up your hand if you've been in business for less than 5 years. So today's 2020. So have you been in business for less than 5 years? I want to give some crazy bad news. On average, 95% of all businesses in America fail within the first 5 years. And it's actually even higher in real estate. I want to repeat that. It's even higher than the 95% fail. And that's because of these 7-year market turns. We're actually at year number 11, year number 12 in real estate. And a lot of businesses are going to fail right now. And 95%. So when I was in that room a couple of weeks ago, there were 400 people. 90% of the people raised their hand, almost the entire audience. And so I said to everybody, I said, this little group, statistically, right here in the front row, right? It was a tiny little group. There were probably, that's like 20 people will actually succeed versus everybody else failing. And that is something that I wanted to change. And so why do most of these businesses fail? Number one is that they have no clear vision or team. They have no clear vision. And I'm talking crystal clear vision of where they want to head. The second is they're burned out. All these individuals know how to do is work. And over the 5 years, most absolutely burn out. The third is money. They don't realize they either don't have the money or they don't have the operating capital, especially when there's market turns. They're not prepared. And then lastly, they have a broken business model. So when the markets turn, especially in real estate, if they've got the wrong business model, they fail. And that's why 95% fail. But ultimately, why do we fail? Why did they fail? Because of you. And each of us, especially all of us that are following this right now, we individually have the ability to control this outcome and not be one of the 5%, with us being the 5% successes. I shared this, Robert and I were in a mastermind. I'm such a huge fan of being around like-minded, positive, abundance mentality people. We were down in Mexico a few weeks ago. And one of the leaders of this mastermind had such a great concept. He said, we're all in crisis. We're either currently in a crisis. A lot of us, this entire world right now is pretty much in a crisis. Or we're coming out of a crisis, or we're about to go into a crisis. And he said something even more profound. He said, and if you don't know that you're in a crisis, or this is true, you're probably either delusional, or you're about to go into a crisis. And I want us to remember that, because that's why business visioning and going through this process is so important. And especially right now, I encourage everybody, we're doing this with so many of our clients and members, we're doing it ourselves as a business of going through the vision of what we want. And I'm going to walk you through right now. So the big idea today, and write this down, and I've got a little document of all the summary of this as well, but follow the proven paths of wisdom. I want you to think of a bowling alley. The follow the proven paths is like the bumpers of, if we're bowling, we got the gutter on each side, right? We got gutters on each side where the ball can go in, and that's failure. And what we want is we want to put up the bumpers on both sides so that we're guaranteeing our success, really the success formula. So it's follow the proven paths of wisdom. These are timeless treasures. These are the path is clear as long as we follow them. And most importantly, do not reinvent the wheel. You know, King Solomon, one of the wisest people that ever walked this planet, he said, there's nothing new under the sun. And especially all of us in real estate, everyone, there is nothing new under the sun. You don't want to reinvent the wheel. So many of us, I was actually on a podcast interview yesterday with one of the top performers in the real estate business, and he asked me the one nugget, and he actually asked me what was the one failure that I've made, and I said, historically, I tried to reinvent the wheel. You do not want to reinvent the wheel in this business. You want to follow what works by the people that have actually done it before, and you want to execute to the exact plan and not waver, right? You don't want to go right, you don't want to go left. Once you start perfecting it, then you make it better as your own, but you don't. So many people, and I will say it right now, a lot of us are going to hear this presentation, you're going to know it's accurate, and then you're going to go off and you're going to reinvent the wheel again, because that's what we do, most of us, and that is the proven path of failure. So don't reinvent the wheel. The last is we want to build our foundation of our business on rock, especially right now. So many people have built their business on sand And when the crisis comes in, when the flood comes in, when the coronavirus comes in, that the sand, we're not built on a foundation of rock, and a lot of people get wiped out. Okay, word of wisdom from the wise. I am a faith-based guy, and this is one of my favorite quotes, and I've got a couple of them, but Proverbs 19:20 says, listen to advice and accept discipline. In the end, you'll be counted as the wise. So many of us, I had a lot of Facebook messengers based on what I'm about to share with you. And some people will get it, and some people will completely miss this. And so I'm going to do my very best to really install this in everybody's head. So many of us are like fish swimming against the current, going upstream, going nowhere. And ultimately, they get eaten, right? They get eaten by a bear, like if you're watching the video right now. These are fish swimming upstream, going nowhere, and just work, 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 work. All we have to do, everybody, is just switch our direction with the flow of the stream and remove the friction. And it's following the proven steps. So I'm going to get right into the meat of what has been the things that have ultimately changed my life. There are 4 things that have changed my life. I know Robert is the same thing. I know the guys that are they've really got a thriving business. They've done these as well. So the 4 things of proving the proven path of wisdom is absolutely, clearly define your vision. You want to know where you're heading. I'm going to walk through each of these in the tools, and then I'm going to give you a bunch of things, very simple exercises that you can do right now. They are all fun. They're visioning, to define your vision. And the vision is your vision. It's not the vision for your business. It's what do you want? The second, this is missed by so many people. It is leverage resources. You want to leverage other people. And the word is leverage. Every business uses leverage, and most people miss it. The third is marketing and sales, especially in real estate, especially if we're business operators and we've been doing wholesaling, flipping, fixing, whatever that might be on the operations side. Marketing and sales, or you're dead. That's the number one thing. That is the life support. That's like the oxygen mask. And then the last is hire pros. So these 4 things, I'm going to give you very specific tools. And I think you're going to love it. So let's go right into how to define your vision. The very first thing, some of you have heard this before. This changed my life. It is the perfect day. And I have a document. You can actually get a copy of my perfect day. And I'll read part of it to you. But what you end up doing is you ask yourself, I want to stop. You can do this. You go on a walk today, and I encourage everybody to write this down. I did this twice. I did it in 2009. I did it in 2013. I carried this document around in my pocket for over 1.5 years. I looked at it constantly, and I encourage all of you to do the same thing. The perfect day is pick a day in the future. I picked a Saturday morning, and I said, what if I didn't have to have the worries of money, and I had the money coming in, and I had the things taken care of, and I didn't have the worry? What would my life look like? And I experienced the day, a specific Saturday morning, and said, I wake up, and what do I feel like? What does my day look like? What am I doing? And I'll read part of my perfect day to everybody. It starts out like this. I wake up at 5 in the morning, and I make coffee for my wife, and I go to the gym like I do every day, 5 days a week. And by the way, when I did this, I did not wake up at 5 in the morning. I went to bed at like 2 o'clock in the morning. I was a workaholic. But I said, if I had the perfect day, what would it look like? And it continues on, and I said, I create my main function of my business is to create money-making ideas that I can pass on to a team that gets it better, and they'll make it their own idea. And that's what I'm going to walk through in a second, called the genius zone. But it's really having clarity of what your day looks like. What do you experience? What kind of smells and sensations do you have? What type of people are you interacting with? What are you doing? What are you thinking? Then the last part of it is, what does my life look like in terms of vacations? I said that I love Maui. I get to go to Maui often. I'm not a slave to my business. I take annual sabbaticals where I'm able to go and enjoy things that I love to do. So spending the time doing your perfect day. And I'm going to give you my perfect day as an outline and some tools around it. And it's not a hard exercise. This is the very first step of clearly defining your vision, because here's what happens. If you don't have a vision, you're going to go nowhere and you become a slave under your business. Your business becomes the master over you. And we're taught, even biblically, that we're not to be a slave to our business. We're not to be a slave to anything. So perfect day. The second is a genius zone. When I was at the event, the individual actually did the genius zone exercise. This is an exercise, and I'll add it. The genius zone is something where you're identifying what are you really good at? What are the few things that you are really an absolute genius at? Because if you can actually get what you're passionate about and what you're uniquely qualified and gifted, and that's your focus, then that's part of your vision, because everything else falls under. And I'm going to show you an exercise in a few seconds here that you can do that'll free up your life and it'll get you working into your genius zone. The third is called the rapid model. And most of us that are, a lot of people, they get focused that they just need to make money and they need $5 million. And that's a circular loop that goes nowhere. Really what we are looking for, each of us, and I've coached thousands of people. I've interacted with so many of us entrepreneurs, not only in real estate, agents, other businesses. And there's three components of what we're looking for: wealth, freedom, right? Wealth and having the money and not the worry, the health, and the third are relationships. Wealth, health, and relationships. A good friend of mine, he said, you know, most people that don't have wealth, most people that don't have money have 1,000 wishes. But somebody that's unhealthy and sick, they only have one wish, and that's for their health. So it's so easy. It's in relationships with our family, our spouses, our kids, ourselves, and for many of us like myself, my relationship with God. So rapid, I'm going to walk through it, but it's really the roadmap and action plan. I've got tools. I'm not going to go into this today in detail, but I've got tools. We call it the wheel. And if you've got the wheel performing, it's each part of our areas of our business and how we actually come up. It's the roadmap and action plan. So you come up with a roadmap, but then there's an action plan to get you to where you want. When you actually are doing this, you're typically finding 10x results. So that means 10x, 10 times the amount of results than you ever would have even thought about doing if you're performing. This exercise, what happens is we identify the areas of our life, the areas of our business, and we're able to quickly rate them. And then what we ask ourselves, it's like a tire. And a tire to roll down, right? If we have a flat tire, the car goes nowhere. The bicycle goes nowhere. So when we actually can identify the areas of our wheel and we rate them, we'll find out ultimately, is it round? Is the wheel full? And does it roll? And so I've got an exercise to do that. I'm not going to go through it, but there's areas around, do we have marketing in place? Number one, actually, the rapid, which is starting on the top, if you're following the slides, that's the model, that's your vision, your perfect day, getting clarity around your genius zone, an exercise that is not hard. But then how does that work around marketing? A lot of people, they just market, they have no plan, and they're just spinning, right? But having clarity in terms of, does your marketing support your vision, right? I know some people that actually close 5 deals a year, make $250,000, and that's all they want because that gives them the lifestyle to be able to go anywhere they want. So having clarity of your vision, and then the rest of everything else supports it. And so is it round, is it full, and does it roll? And I've got some tools that I'll give you. Okay, the next piece. This changed my life. So many people miss this. And I know some of you that are following me right now, you'll watch this and you'll miss it. And so I really want to call out, this is a life changer. This is a game changer. And if you don't get this, it's very easy to never, ever have the life and you become a slave to your business. And this is, most people understand the idea of leveraging OPM, leveraging other people's money. But leveraging other people's time, other people's experience, other people's resources. And more importantly, one of the big ahas is you can borrow resources. So a lot of people, they try to train and hire and manage, and they're not really that great at managing. And so you can borrow other people's resources. That's, as RealEstateInvestor.com, we've gotten really good at borrowing other people's resources. And Robert and I will continue to share the concept of borrowing resources, of how to do that effectively. Fractional, like RealEstateInvestor.com, you can borrow our people, and as an example, but really leveraging other people's resources is just huge. The second is, if you're doing $10 an hour work, and you're doing $10 an hour work, and you're doing it, you're going to have a $10 bank account. So really understanding how to value your time. I'm going to give you the specific exercise right now on something that this was a life changer, and every person that I've shared it that's implemented this has changed their life. And I'm going to tell a story in a few minutes as an example. But there's a calculator. This is a 5-minute exercise. This is a tool that you can use. It gives you massive clarity. But really knowing the value of your time. What are you worth as an individual? Because if you know what you're worth and you're doing anything less than that, you're going to realize you need to outsource it. So this exercise, if you're following along, the very first thing is, what is the net profit this next 12 months? How much money do you want to put in your personal bank account? This is not, doing thousands of deals and having some gross revenue. This is the amount of money you want to put in your bank account. And I'm going to use $500,000 as the example. Some of you, it might be $250,000. Some of you, it might be $1 million. Some of you, it might be 100,000, right? Depending upon where you are. But I'm going to use 500,000. The second is, how many hours per week do you want to work in your business? This is going to say, hey, this is an average of 40 hours. I'd like to work 40 hours in my business per week. I'd like to make 500,000 that I actually have in my bank account. And what that tells you very quickly is that your time is worth $250 an hour. All right, here's something very interesting. Almost everybody on this webinar right now that's following me, if you're on Facebook, your time is going to end up typically between $250 an hour and $1,000 an hour. And here's the massive aha. The huge takeaway: if you're doing anything less in value, if you're doing anything in your business that's less than that number, you need to outsource it. It needs to be a massive, massive, red light that you need to find somebody else to do it quickly. And the way that we do it is it's the path of how fast can I get that person doing it. The second thing is, in this calculator, is I want to show everybody this return on investment of hiring somebody, because I know a lot of people are like, well, I can't afford it, or I don't have the money right now. All right, so let's take a very simple example, and it's going to blow your mind. Let's say that the very first person, you looked at where you wanted to hire first to leverage other people's time and what the return of time and return on investment is. Let's say it's an inside sales agent. Some of you might call this a lead processor. Somebody that's calling sellers or calling buyers for you. And let's say of the 40 hours a week, you spend 12 hours a week on average doing this job yourself, all right? And let's say that you're going to replace yourself. Instead of you doing 12 hours doing the job, you're going to spend 2 hours managing that person, right? So you go from 12 hours doing to 2 hours managing. Now, if you have resources, you always have to manage, right? So there's always going to be some time. This is one of the biggest things that I see coaching people. And that, especially real estate people, that don't get this. And they'll say, oh, I hired a $4 hour resource, or I didn't sign up for, talk to somebody, he said, oh, I didn't want to spend a couple $100 a month on a data stacking tool or a CRM. I wanted to do it myself. And he forgot that the time he was still spending 4 or 5 hours, 10 hours himself doing the work, right? That's thousands of dollars of his own time. So you want to go from how many are you doing to how many are you managing? And let's say that you're able to replace yourself with a $10 an hour resource and you're going to hire them for 40 hours full time. So you pay $10 an hour full time. Let me show you the math. By doing just that, hiring one resource, you just got back, you just earned 5 hours this next year of freedom, time that you don't have to do that job. That's 12 and a half weeks. If we go back to the beginning of this discussion, I said, I'm going to show everybody how to get 12 weeks of vacation or 12 weeks of their time this next year back with one simple little technique. This is 500 hours. That's also, you made a return on investment, the profit off of that resource of $105,000. Instead of you doing it, you hired somebody else full-time, you managed them to keep them doing the work, and you made $105,000 on their time. That's a 6.25x return on investment, 625% return on the value of that resource. We all know leverage in real estate. Many of us know leverage of borrowing money at one rate. That's the whole game of real estate is, you buy, you use leverage, and you get a return on investment. But most people miss this. I used the example a few weeks ago of a bank. Imagine right now, I probably shouldn't use the example right now because a lot of us are concerned with the banks, but imagine you go to the bank and the bank had a sale and they said, bring a dollar bill, as many as you want, and in 3 or 4 months, right, I will give you a $5 bill, or I'll give you $6.25, or I'll give you a $10 bill, right? Guaranteed. $1 bill, you turn in and you get, let's say $10, brand new crisp $10 bill in 3 or 4 months, guaranteed. Almost every one of us would be taking wheelbarrows of money to the bank. People, this is exactly what our business is on leverage. Because typically on a real estate deal, whatever we're doing today, like if we're doing direct mail or cold calling, the average is about 3 to 4 months, right? It's a guaranteed return on investment of time if you're doing the right money-making activities. So I wanted to give you that tool. I will give you a number to text at the very end of this presentation where you can get a copy of this and all my tools that I gave. Good friend of mine, I wanted to give all 400 of his people some really good tools. I'm going to give it to all of you as well, and a couple of other things. All right, the next tool. This is another life changer for leveraging people. Again, this is a very simple exercise. This is not hard. It doesn't take a lot of hours. It's actually 5 minutes a day for a couple of days in a row. It's called the 4 quadrants on how to win your life back. And this is actually part of reinventing. When RealEstateInvestor.com, we talk about how to reinvent your life. This is a component of it. Part of our rapid model of getting out of overwhelm, getting out of being a workaholic and spinning plates. Here's how it works. So let's assume that we look at all the stuff that you're doing in your business right now. And a lot of us know that we're doing things without leveraging people that is not a good use of our time. And we know that a $10 an hour work is a $10 bank account. So what we do is over the next week, if you're feeling overwhelmed, and by the way, I encourage everybody to do this whenever they're feeling overwhelmed, like they're not working on the right stuff. I do it all the time. And it's a way to identify where you need to outsource and then what role that you need to hire for first. So we start with our daily activities. You just look at the end of the day, do it for 4 or 5 days in a row, and you just write down all the stuff that you're currently doing. And I do this with the staff. We do the same thing if you've got a team and they're overwhelmed, you have them do it as well. So very simple exercise. This is a coaching student of ours, and we said, we work with them, and here's what they came up with. They said, I'm pulling seller lists and I'm data stacking on my own, pulling the names and addresses for mailing, and I'm data stacking, and then I'm skip tracing phone numbers. I'm sending out the weekly mailings. So every week I'm having to figure out what I'm doing, and I'm sending those out. Doesn't take a massive amount of time, but typically about an hour, 3 hours a week. I'm taking the initial seller calls. I'm then screening those leads. The leads come in, I'm taking the calls live. I'm doing some outbound cold calling. I'm messing around with the systems and configuring Podio and pulling KPIs. I'm doing my own Facebook ads, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This may sound very familiar, including things like, I'm doing a little transaction coordinating, I'm managing a team, I'm dealing with finance, trying to balance a bank account, all the things that you're doing. The next part, once we have that, you can gather this in just a few minutes a day for a few days. Then we put the 4 quadrants together. And the 4 quadrants is a piece of paper. And on the left side, we say, I like. And on the lower quadrant, I say, I don't like. Okay? Like, don't like. On the top, I put good at. And on the far right, I put not good at. Okay? So like, don't like, good at, not good at. And then we take those things that we're doing in our business and we fill in where they fit. So in the upper left quadrant, as an example, these are all the things that this guy said, this individual that we coach said, I'm good at this and I like doing this on the upper left. He loves closing hot seller deals. He said, I'm incredible with sellers. I just love when a seller is ready to sell and I can go in and interact with them. I always win those deals. I like negotiating my deals and getting creative deals with owner financing. I love super qualified buyers and building those relationships. I love raising money. I love going to masterminds and interacting on Facebook and like-minded people, making business decisions. I'm really good at real estate. And then he filled all these other ones that we looked at not good at and he doesn't like. So he's not good at this lower right quadrant, and he doesn't like, he hates the transaction coordinator stuff, paperwork, filling out contracts. He's like most of us, we hate managing and delegating, right? A lot of entrepreneurial, high visionary types that like selling, they hate managing and delegating. So this individual didn't like that. He really didn't like meetings, really hated finance and accounting and dealing with taxes and building scorecards, all the tasks and to-dos, et cetera. So that's the first thing. Then what we do is we identify each one of these items, and you put them in big buckets. Is this $10,000 an hour work? Is it $1,000 an hour work? Is it $100 an hour work or $10? And you don't have to be any more granular than that. And so you do each of those. And here's what's really interesting. This is what we have found by doing this, doing it with myself and doing it with hundreds and hundreds of other people around the country, that typically what you're good at and what you like are the super high money making activities in this business or whatever business you're in. And the stuff that's the low money making activities are things that you typically don't like or you're not good at. All right. And those are what we want to outsource. Those are the ones, the low money making activities. So if you could outsource these and leverage other resources, ideally you can borrow people that are already experts rather than having to even train them and go through that process. And we're actually going to go through and provide more content over the coming weeks on how we do that. Specifically, we call it an accountability chart. And I'm going to share how do you take this and then identify and then manage to it? Because a lot of people have asked, how do you actually delegate? How do you hire? How do you manage a team if you're not good at it? And it's actually a lot easier than you think. And that's how we get absolute freedom back in our life. Right? The last component that I want to share on leveraging resources is being able to push button, hire, and fire. And this is a really big one because a lot of people are scared of leveraging resources because maybe they've had a bad experience. Maybe they hired somebody who wasn't very good. And so they took the work back after firing them and they were just nervous. So you want a system, you want a business where you really have a mentality of push button, hire, fire, and more specifically in two areas. Number one in marketing and number two in sales. And I'll tell everybody, this is super important in this market, especially if you're borrowing resources and you do it right, because our businesses scale up and our businesses scale down. And having the ability to adjust quickly is super important. If you remember the guy in the story, he had a team of 35 people in 2008 that he had to let go. And that's very hard, and he kept them too long. So you want to push button, hire, and fire. And I'm going to walk through a little bit more of this in a few minutes. Okay, I'm going to move on. So the very first thing is define your vision. The second is leveraging resources. The third thing that changed my life, and I know super important, is if you don't have marketing and sales wired, you're dead. So I want to walk through and start with 5 key principles to live by. And I say live by because these are the bumpers. If you can stay and follow these proven paths, you will not miss. All right? So principle number 1, marketing and sales or you're dead. And we know this, marketing and sales is the business. But the big lesson, the big aha, and most people, so many people get this, if they're not professional, experienced business owners, and they're fairly new, is marketing and sales is not an expense. It's a return on investment. It is really the idea of going to a bank and putting $1 in and getting $6 out, getting $10 out. It is not an expense. And if you are cutting in marketing and sales, you have death in your business. And that's what I'm seeing with this COVID virus, that a lot of people are actually stalling out. Well, this is not the time to stop on marketing and sales, because typically you're building a pipeline for 3 or 4 months down the road. So if you stop now, you're not going to have a business in 3 to 4 months. So that's principle number 1, is marketing is not an expense, it's a return on an investment. And we're going to give you the tools because you should know what that return is. You should know the exact formula on what you're going to spend, what it's going to produce, and what you're going to get as a return on investment. I'm going to give everybody a scorecard as part of this that you can actually have in 5 minutes. You'll know exactly what all of your numbers are to follow on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. All right, second, this is another huge one. There's one thing in our business that you cannot automate. You just can't do it. And most people are trying to automate everything. And the one thing that you can't automate is you got to talk to people. You cannot automate talking to people. There are human interactions that have to happen. And there's relationship, there's trust, and building a solution to a pain or problem. And so most people will get stuck, and I'll walk through and tell you why in just a second. You'll totally get it. But people want to automate everything except talking to people. They jump in and they're dealing with spreadsheets, or they're looking for the next, fairy dust perfect mailing list, or they're dinking around with Podio, except doing the one thing that they have to do, and that's talking to people. And if it's not them, they get somebody to do it for them. And the reason that people they focus and they procrastinate on doing the one thing they have to do, talking to people, is the fear of rejection, the fear of getting a no from a seller. And selling doesn't start until you get a rejection. So that is it's actually the number 2 fear. The number 1 fear that people have is public speaking, right? And so this is the one thing to embrace. It's the principle to live by, that you cannot automate the talking to people. Now, you can have a talking to people system that automates everything to get you in front of the people, but you still have to talk to them. And one of the things, it comes to principle number 3. This is Charlie Munger, I think one of the smartest guys I've ever seen, but he is the brains behind Warren Buffett. He's 96. He's the vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway. I was actually at his shareholder conference a few months ago, and the question came up to Charlie, and they said, "What is your success formula, Charlie? And what has made you the billions of dollars?" He said, "It's very simple. It's called KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple, stupid." I see so many people, they make such complexity out of our business, and keep it simple, stupid. You need sending out the marketing and keeping the marketing going. You need to be constantly following up on the leads. That's a consistent process. You want to be in front of sellers. You want to be following up with those sellers, closing deals, growing your business, hiring people. Keep it simple, stupid. All right, fourth, 80% of the revenue comes from 20% of the sales team. This is not just real estate. This is in every business. This is a sales component that's so important to know that most people miss. 80% of revenue comes from 20% of your sales team. What does that mean? That means 1 in 5 salespeople that you hire are going to be keepers. The rest of them are going to be what I call duds. And so the mentality in our business is you want to have a revolving door mentality, because only 1 in 5 are going to be keepers. And sales is the easiest area of our business to know if you got a good person that's going to perform or somebody not. In fact, you should know the formula for knowing if somebody is going to be a keeper. It's typically 30 days. You know you got a salesperson, and not longer than 90. And so if you've got somebody that's been around for months and months and you know they're not a performer, they're not going to suddenly become a performer. It is salespeople either get it or they don't. One of the things I shared is when I hire salespeople, I hire 5 at a time. I hire 5 at a time. You hire 5 salespeople at a time because you know one is a keeper. That's a proven formula, and you get them competing, letting them know that only 1 are typically going to keep, because you want the hunters, the salespeople, competing and hungry. All right. And you always, the last thing is you always want to manage your salespeople from a scorecard. If you don't have a scorecard in place, you really are not going to have a performing business. I have not met anybody recently in the last 3 years that has a successful business without a scorecard. What is a scorecard? I'll give you guys the scorecard today. If you don't have one, it'll give you the exact math for every part of your marketing and sales business. But a scorecard is basically how many leads do you need to generate? That's by marketing. How many of those leads need to be worked and called, right? All the way down to how many dials of the phone, right? How many dials do you have to make ultimately to get enough deals to make enough offers to close? So it's a scorecard. And the reason that you have a scorecard is if you know on a weekly basis, this is what I need to produce. Did your team do it, or did you do it if you're a one-man show, or did you not do it? Okay, because the scorecard will never lie. If you want $1 million business, you'll know exactly what you have to do on a weekly basis. And if you're not hitting those numbers, you'll know that you're not going to have that business. So it's a scorecard. Here is how to identify a dud. The fastest way to know if you've got a dud salesperson, a crappy salesperson. This is in every business. Every training, professional Fortune 500 training I've ever been to, in software, in retail sales, when a salesperson says that the leads suck. So, and some people will actually even recognize themselves. Are you saying, oh, the leads suck? All leads suck until you actually start working them. So, and all sellers are not motivated yet. So most salespeople, good salespeople, will be constantly saying, give me more leads. I want more leads so I can go close more deals. Those are your performers. The ones that say the leads suck, you know that most likely 90%, they're not going to perform. In fact, it might even be closer to 100%. All right. The last principle that you should live by is you should never prospect yourself. And this should be something that people should write down. If you're prospecting, what is prospecting? Prospecting means you're doing anything other than talking to sellers that are ready to sell. If you're not, all you should be doing, especially if we're a business owner and we don't have a sales acquisition team doing this for us, you should never prospect. You should never be doing any of the marketing, the mailing, the follow-up, the texting. That should always be outsourced. And here's why. On average, this is on average, okay, across the entire country, 45 leads equal a deal. All right. In some in some channels, it might be 20, but it's still a lot of leads to get a deal. 80% of all of the profits and the deals come between the 5th and the 12th touch point or interaction with the seller. And less than 10% of anybody, any agent or real estate investor right now, today, ever follow up more than twice. And this is why their businesses are not performing. And the reason is it is a massive amount of prospecting, right? Generating leads, following up with leads, talking to rejection. A lot of people, of the 45 leads, about a third are any good right away. That means of 45, that means 30 of the sellers either hang up on you, or they tell you they want to be removed from the list, or they're not interested, they're angry people, whatever they might be. 15, so 1/3, are typically sellers that may be interested, turning into a deal. All right, that's on average working. Now, all of those leads should be followed up on, because just because a lead is not good today doesn't mean they're not going to be good in 6 months or 9 months. And that's why 80% of the profits come between the 5th and the 12th touch point. Now, if many of you have been following Robert and I, you'll know this is true. And if you're in masterminds, everybody that actually is making money, who's been making a lot of money, they'll tell you the same thing. But a lot of people will miss this, and they'll go back to say, oh, the leads suck, and you should never prospect. So to really capture this and really understand this, think of a diamond store. Imagine if you owned a diamond store in your area. Beautiful diamond rings, right, for ladies and guys that would come in, and typically $5,000 to $50,000, $100,000 diamond rings. Could you imagine if you owned a diamond store and you said, oh, you know what, I can't afford a staff, or I need to learn this business, so I'm going to go into the diamond mine, and I'm going to go to South Africa, and I'm going to go spend a few months in the diamond mine, or I'm going to go pickaxe, right, grab a pickaxe and go learn how to pick the diamonds and clean the diamonds and figure out the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And then I'm going to learn how to chop them and cut them and get them to perfection. So our business and what we do in real estate is exactly the same thing. So think of your business as being a high-end, high-performing, money-making diamond store, and you would never go in with a diamond pick, right, into the mine. So you should never prospect on your own in this business. Okay, that's the principle. So pulling it all together in terms of sales and marketing, some of you may have seen this, some of you may have not. And sales and marketing is a funnel. It is a funnel of our business where marketing generates a massive amount of leads, right? We start with the population of the potential in our market. In any market, it starts with marketing, and then it turns into some leads, and then some yeses, into some maybes, into ready, into closing deals, all right? And I'm going to walk through a lot of these things at the top. Our $10 an hour activities. Usually at the top of the funnel are $10 or $100 activities. And if you're following along today on the slides, the bottom of the funnel is typically where you should be spending as business owners the high money-making activities, the $1,000 to $10,000 an hour activities. Now I'm going to walk through these really quickly. I'll give you a copy of this so you can post this funnel yourself. But the $10 an hour work starts with marketing, right? $10 an hour work is things like doing postcards, pay-per-click, sending out letters, right? All the front end of the marketing. But when you do the marketing, you still have to manage the fulfillment, right? That's the weekly marketing. If you are not marketing on a weekly or daily basis, then you're going to have holes in your business. So you have to do the fulfillment. That's like managing the mail house, managing the mail list, doing your data stacking, making sure that you got the weekly drops. If you're doing Facebook ads or PPC, making sure that every week that you're doing ad drops, etc. Right? If it's cold calling, the fulfillment for cold calling is the same thing. It means every single day loading into the auto dialer. You got systems that manage, right? When those leads come back in, you've got the system in place to actually capture, prioritize, and automate. It's one component, the automation piece. You also need to manage the inbound seller calls. Now, let me just tell everybody a statistic. National statistic, less than 3% of the deals that close come from that very first seller call. So most people, their business has been based on that first call only. That's 3% of your profits. 97% of all profits, and the actual statistic is even less than 3%. And this is in every industry, in around direct response marketing. If we're doing any outbound marketing, less than 3%. It's all in the follow-up. There's also research and comparables. Once you've got good leads, getting the value, the rents, these are all $10 an hour activities, including things like outbound phone follow-up, right? The trained team that's doing nothing but dialing, following up, and scheduling appointments. Now, the $100 an hour work starts to get into the phone component, the text messaging, right? Sending out the right text message or the right voicemail or the right email with the right copy to the seller at the right time. Those are $100 an hour work because you now already have some leads and good leads, and now it's a matter of the follow-up. But the real, the $1,000 activities are negotiating and closing with those sellers. That's where we should all be spending our time, building rapport, getting a yes, negotiating terms, and $10,000 an hour work. So here's what I've found. The last is a CEO, as a business owner, really where's the money making? It's raising money, especially right now in this market. We're going to be going into an awesome, awesome opportunity for raising capital. Building the team, having the absolute best players on your team. There's going to be a lot of people out of work. There's an incredible opportunity to continue to build the A team as we're going into this new market. Closing the biggest deals, and even more importantly, as a business owner, starting to go into new markets. Because once you get a good market, especially if you're a wholesaler, being able to go into the next market and the next market, maybe it's going to go into apartments, and you being able to go on the bigger money-making activities. So the question for all of you is, are you doing this work yourself, or are you having qualified experts in it? Now, RealEstateInvestor.com, this is the focus. I was so passionate, and Robert and I have been so passionate together that we wanted to solve this problem because we solved it for ourselves. So we built a business to do this and automate it. And that is what RealEstateInvestor.com. That's not the purpose of my presentation today, but I was just so passionate about it that we decided to take this on, and it's RealEstateInvestor.com with the systems to automate everything around getting you in front of the seller, plus the experts that can actually do the work for less than $10 an hour. All right. So I want to share the last principle, or the last thing that changed my life, and that is, I want this as a takeaway for everybody on building a business that works for you, and that is to always hire professionals, hire pros, hire coaches. There's not a movie star or an athlete or professional singer in America or the world that doesn't have a professional coach. I actually have 4 CEO coaches. I have 4 coaches, including a personal trainer that actually coaches any part of my life. So hiring professionals, because what you forget is if you hire a low-end person, you're going to have to be the subject matter expert. You got to be the smart one. You got to manage them and delegate them. And you forget that that takes time. And there's massive lost opportunity cost, right? We're about to go into probably one of the biggest transfers of wealth in history. And if it takes you 9 months, 12 months, 2 years to figure it out because you did not hire pros, you've missed the opportunity of a lifetime. And so the takeaway that I shared with everybody, and I'm going to share with you, is hire pros, professionals. This is a story of Javier Hinojo, good friend of mine, and amazing, amazing individual, such a heart for giving. But Javier shared a story that at Christmas, in 2017, 2018 at Christmas, he had 17 cents in his bank account. He had 17 cents. He actually shared the story with me, and he's done it a few times live with us and some masterminds that we're in. And he shared that he had to go to his son, his teenage son, and borrow money to pay for rent. And his desire was to be able to provide for his family. He said, Gary, this was the worst time in my life. And I know that there are people probably actually following me right now that can totally relate to Javier. And Javier, he didn't have the money. He actually, we met at early 2018. And he was doing real estate. He was doing a lot of the right stuff. He took the coaching, the courses, and he was really fired up to do it. But he ran into a problem, and that problem was that he didn't have the time. Didn't have the people under him. Everything that I shared today, and he actually came to us. He had some success. He closed a couple of deals, but we had a one-on-one together. And I shared a few of these things, and I said, Javier, I remember it was Coach Willie. Julia, I know you're on the phone, and you actually heard the story. But we said to Javier, you're the biggest problem in your business. You're actually the stuck. And until you get out of the way and you can hire a salesperson to do this particular thing for you, and you're not going to actually do it. And his wife said, Javier, and you see his wife today, she's the cutest thing. She was so supportive, but they had a lot of struggles together. And he ended up taking that and implementing it and doing exactly what we shared with him. And anyway, today, Javier he's in 5 markets. He shared that he made over 1.5 million this last year. He's in 5 different markets. He's in one of the most exclusive masterminds in the country, and sharing this same secret with other people. And I actually just heard from Javier. Javier is now going into another market, another outside of the single family, because he's now ready, especially to take advantage of this. So his big epiphany was he was the problem. He needed to follow the proven paths and not reinvent the wheel. And he implemented it, and he achieved his success. And I'll tell you, that's why personally, I'm so excited about what we do. And so we have Reignite Your Business, Reinvent Your Life is really our purpose here at RealEstateInvestor.com, is to impact people, to help them at every cost, especially right now. And the last thing I wanted to share, I'm going to actually skip this here. And that story, if everybody remembers that story. Sorry, guys, I'm just going to shift because... Give me just a second. That story that I'm going to shift to really quickly of that guy that I shared at the beginning, that story was me. And I'm putting up a slide, my life last year, not to say, hey, look at me, how great I am. I wanted to tell you that I was the guy, like probably so many of you, so many of us in this community, that tried to reinvent the wheel. And I implemented these practices because I couldn't go any further. In 2013, my wife and my kids, my daughters were growing up, and they didn't have the time with me. And I implemented these because coaches had told me, Gary, go do these things. And I'm sharing the results. So last year, RealEstateInvestor.com was my dream to do. And we merged with Robert Syfert, who's actually on this call today, with his technology platform, to be able to give back to our community. I have 3 businesses. We have over 100 people on the team, and I get to do what I love. Last year, I had over 10 vacations where I was able to check out. So this stuff does work if you take the words of wisdom, you listen to it, and then you take action. In closing, before I give you the text message, I want to share a couple of things. Why businesses fail is because of us. Because of us that get in the way of our business, and we can control the outcome. So follow the proven paths of wisdom. Here's the thing, I know, and I shared this in St. Louis, that most of us, we say failure is not an option. I ask you, is failure an option for you and your dreams and your family, especially with what we're all dealing with right now? But The statistics are 95% of all businesses fail within the first 5 years. So the statistics are not in our favor. And that's why we need to implement these practices, especially right now. And so many of us, I call it making mountains out of molehills. One of the exercises that I have our students do is I always say, what is, over the next 10 years, what does this business mean financially for your family, for your kids, for your wives? Some people, they've got older parents like my mom wanting to be able to, some of us want to be able to have a house for our parents and security for our parents that don't have it into their retirement. And so what is the value over the next 10 years of this business of getting it right? Maybe it's 5 million, maybe it's 10 million, right? Maybe it's 25,000 a month in passive income. And what happens is we run into a tiny little bump in the road, right? Might be like short term, like what's going on right now. It might be I need to hire a coach, but I really can't afford it, or I think, or I can't do the marketing, or I can't hire a $7 an hour, $8 an hour resource. And we put this tiny little bump in the road. Maybe it's a small financial impact. And what it does is we put that little bump in the road that we should just pass over, and we put that in the way of our entire future. And so I encourage everybody, are you making mountains out of molehills? You know, Proverbs 19:18 said, the one who gets wisdom loves life. The one who cherishes understanding will soon prosper. I'm going to read that one more time. The one who gets wisdom loves life. The one who cherishes understanding will soon prosper. So in summary, what is wisdom? And what are the proven paths, not reinventing the wheel? It's absolute, especially right now, get crystal clear on your vision of what you want your future to look like. Not somebody else's, not what you heard from some mastermind or some person on stage at a live show, but what kind of vision do you want for your life? Then leverage the resources and not do it yourself. Get out of doing everything yourself. Focus on having marketing and sales because it's an ROI, and hire professionals, experts, be in the right masterminds, hire the right coaches, right? Have an accountability coach in your life, in any part of the life. That's what, something that I've done. I know the people, it's the proven formula. So lastly, go out and do it. And that's my give back to everybody. The last is I've got a whole bunch of tools. I know some of you are going to want to learn about RealEstateInvestor.com. We've got some links on there. You can find out. We've got solutions from anywhere from $97 a month, technology solutions, all the way to entire team of resources that can manage your marketing, that can do cold calling for you, that can do all the phone follow-up, all the text messaging for as little as $7.50 an hour. So there's a lot of stuff on there. All my tools you can go and find here. And we're super active on Facebook. We're going to be posting constantly, Robert and I, and bringing more content and more people that are actually making the change in their business right now. So you can text message the number on your screen. We'll post it on Facebook, but it's 925-320-3080. And within about 10 minutes, you'll get a text message back with the links to the tools that I wanted to give you that I shared today, the calculators, and a bunch of guides and some of my best materials that I wanted to get to all of you. So you can just text message. It's not something that we're going to bombard you with in terms of marketing. That system that's texting you takes about 10 minutes to respond. And that's the same system with RealEstateInvestor.com, our platform, using either Touch, Grow, or Managed, that our members use, over 600 people, that is using to text you back. So you'll actually get a flavor of what we do for our clients with sellers. So you can text that, and you get all the tools. 925-320-3080. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to stop the share here. Robert, I'll have you come back on. I know that we're over here on the time. I'll answer a few questions, and then we'll call it a day.
Yes, awesome, awesome. And you can watch the replay. You can, it's in the group, so you can watch the replay. We'll also make sure to just in the comments below, we'll post the phone number that you can text to get all the free tools. Again, just text it. You'll get the links for each one of the free tools. Pick and choose what you want for free. And yeah, the first question, I know it's kind of a question. It's kind of not. So I'll kind of read it out loud and then we can both answer it. And then anyone else that has any questions, feel free to post them in and we'll answer them. We know we're a little bit over time, so we'll do our best to answer them really quick if there are any other questions. Some of them got answered along the way.
Here's one, Robert William Smith. Great question, Will. He says, as a small business, it seems I have to do everything yourself first, and then you delegate once you start to grow. I feel the diamond mine analogy only worked when you have miners already. Know what I mean? Such a great point. I use the analogy, imagine if you're going to start a pizza store and you're going to be a pizza store owner and do delivery. Would you be the guy in that pizza store, the business owner, that would also be in the kitchen making the pizzas, taking the orders, taking the calls over the phone, and then actually getting in your car and going and delivering the pizzas? Businesses do not operate independently. Now, I think one of the biggest reasons that people fail, the statistics, if you go to a seminar, right, a lot of these rah-rah seminars, it'll sound like everybody's doing and making a ton of money. The failure rate is incredibly high. And I think from my perspective, after all the years of doing this, the big lie in our business is that you can make money out of nothing and you can do it all, in your underwear without any people. You can do it without using any money or credit of your own, but this business is about leveraging people. And remember, it's a return on investment. You're looking, hiring a resource, or you could start with a tool, right? You can start with a very inexpensive tool, and you could actually, the next thing to add is typically a phone person. I think there's more risk trying to do everything yourself than actually at least starting with a small team. And that's actually, I like the fractional team where you can borrow resources, right? Why you come to a company like RealEstateInvestor.com, you can actually you can borrow a few people to make the phone calls for you. Robert?
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways to answer this question. I do know what you mean, and it's also, to Gary's point, it's unfortunate that a lot of people feel that way when they start out. So a great book that'll really break down where we're coming from on that. I love recommending books, right? So go get E-Myth from Michael Gerber. And this is exactly the story he breaks down as he uses a lady who opened a bakery, just like the pizza shop analogy. We all think that we have to come in and because there's something that we want to do. So we feel like we have to go do all those things, right? And then we can create the job role and we can hire those people, which is partially true. If you want to build something from the ground up, you can in fact do that. And so that's what you're feeling because you're choosing to do that though, right? And then to Gary's point, there's always opportunities to leverage things and leverage or hire or make a determination that you already write out on a whiteboard or a sheet of paper what it is that you're going into and what your plan of attack is, and then you could hire right out of the gate. So it's really, if it all comes down to it, it's a mental choice, right? It's all in your mind. It's what you believe first, and then you're making a choice on whether or not to do it yourself or to hire or to leverage or not. All of it's a choice at the end of the day. I think that was the other questions kind of got answered from the team in between. Some were just as this is going to be recorded because I got stuck doing something else, and I was answering some Facebook stuff in the background for people and commenting in there. January, I think my barrier. Oh, and okay, so got some more coming in. So gentlemen, thank you so much for your genuine answers. I think my barrier is trust when leveraging other people. You must trust them to accomplish the job. Thank you. Yeah, I'll start this one and you can add on to this because 100% we agree with you, right? Trust is it. And it comes right back to what I finished with in my last answer. All of it. And mind you, I've hired several coaches myself to work on this. So I'm coming from a perspective of not I'm better than you or figured this out. No, I hired a bunch of coaches to work on this. And this is where maybe you grew up with this statement, right? Like, no one can do it better than me, so I got to do it all myself. I'll just take over because they can't do what I can do. Here's the flip side, and a great mentor that coached me on this when hiring a salesperson. Or, hey, you're the best. Let's just assume you're the best and no one can do it as better than you. You can't trust them to make all the calls you're going to do and get it done, right? Would two salespeople that are 50% or 60% as good as you beat you? Does it take 3 people, 4 people? At some point, the leverage beats you no matter how good you are, right? And so again, it's a choice. It's a mental choice, though. It's a story. It's a childhood thing. Anything you want to add to that, Gary?
I do. And I struggled with the same issue around trust. I always felt like there's nobody that would be accountable in my business than me. And that's a fallacy. It's actually, and we will put some webinars here in the coming weeks around this. In fact, I didn't present it today. There is another tool around having clarity in terms of the role of who you're hiring. It starts with clarity of who you are hiring, and then what are they measured on? It's typically 1 or 2 or 3 things. I will share one example of this just to give you a flavor for what we'll actually we'll do here in a couple weeks. This is a super simple example, and we'll do this, and then I'll give tools for all of you if you like, and this is helpful for you. But I have the same problem of trust. So ultimately, it comes down to something like marketing. What does marketing own? Marketing really owns, it's an ownership component. It's one person, and all marketing owns and what they're measured on is how much they're spending and how many leads they need to generate. And knowing what that number needs to look like in advance of hiring that person, and then being able to measure it on a weekly basis, because the trust is built from execution and having clarity in terms of what the function is, who owns it, and then what are they responsible for, and then just managing to it. Another example is on the inside sales. It's the phone person. This is missed in almost every business. This to me is the missing link, a lead processor. This is what we call our sales ninjas for RealEstateInvestor.com that we offer. An inside person, what do they own? They own 3 things. That person, all they own is dialing the phone, making a connection with the seller, and getting a qualified schedule appointment. They're not doing anything else, and that's what you measure them on. So if you had clarity as to this is what the role is, right, that I'm hiring for, this is what they own, and then this is what I expect per week, per day, per month that they are reporting on, and you'll know very quickly whether you have. So trust actually comes from clarity, and then it comes from, you know, what they need to own, and then what are they delivering on, and once you have that, the rest of it becomes easy. And there's some very simple things that were given to us that we follow that we can actually share with you that have worked for us in each parts of your business. So if you like that, we'll put some more training around of what we've done and how we manage our business, and then how you could take advantage of it. Whether you're a small shop, you can do it yourself if you're independent, or if you have a small team, or even a large team, because it does work.
Yeah, and then next question on here, does RealEstateInvestor.com help with dispositions at all? Thank you. So I'll start with the answer. The answer is yes, but I think you're asking a deeper question, so we'll answer that too. And when I say yes, I mean in the tool itself, it handles all of your automated relationship building with all of your buyers. So you have email, text, ringless voicemail, and one-off postcards, think thank you cards, right, to manage all of your buyer relationships. And so all that can be built in. You can manage all of that. And also, if you're wholesaling or marketing to buyers after the fact, and you get past the whiteboard and you're into what we call our listings area, that is actually pre-built marketing for you to do all your marketing to your dispositions, control all your negotiation conversations, your sold, one-click contracts to the buyer. So from that perspective, we do it. My assumption is that you're also asking on the managed level of services where we do all the calls. And I don't believe, and Gary can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe our sales ninjas are trained on the buyer side currently. I think we mostly focus on the bigger side, which is typically the sellers.
Yeah, and we in the previous market, we have not had the demand for that. So what we have done, how we've built this is all based on feedback. What do our people? We've got 600 people with us. What do they need? And we build everything off of that. In this coming market, the type of buyers that we're looking for may actually become something that's important in the next 6, 9, 12 months. And that's actually how we'll end up providing that. It would be very, very easy for us to build a phone team that's building buyers for you. In fact, we already have the scripts because we're already doing it ourselves. So if we see the demand, Caleb, from you or others, and in the tool, when you log into Touch, Grow, or Managed, right there, it actually allows you to click a button and put what your request is, and people can rate it and rank it, and that's what gives us the roadmap of what we're building next. That's actually how we came up with providing automating mailing lists and doing the skip tracing now. So you can automate all feedback.
Yeah, so just submit that idea, because if we can get a vote on that and a lot more people are interested, like Gary said, it's not something we couldn't do. We do it in our own real estate business, so we could easily hire and train those people just like we do for the seller side. Looks like there's a follow-up. Hold on. That's awesome. That would be everything I would need. I think it's good to have personal relations, 100%. And especially right now, you should be doubling down on your relationships with your buyers and really focused on it. Does the marketing help with getting more buyers? I'm reaching out to find more buyers right now, but it's going to take a lot of leads to find buyers that are still buying right now. So it's the kind of the same answer. There hasn't been the demand for that. So all of our marketing is focused on the seller side that we drive out. It doesn't mean we couldn't do the buyer side, because we obviously have access to the lists of cash buyers with same marketing channels that you would use. So it's just, there hasn't been the demand for us to do that for people. So we haven't, but we're happy to share. Like, you could post that in the private Facebook group, because I believe you're also a member of RealEstateInvestor.com already. So post that in the private group, and we could share some more about the buyer side in there with you too, on what we would do in our tactics.
Awesome. Great questions.
Yeah.
Great questions. Well, hey, if this has been helpful, if you like the content that we're delivering, I'd love to have you guys go and click like, and you like this video on Facebook and like our page. We'd love to be able to get this. Share it with others.
Share it, comment,
and let us know what else you want. What you what else is on your mind.
Yeah, and a reminder: we will be live again in this group next Tuesday at I'll do it. Someone joked about this in the last comment. 12 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Mountain Time, 2 o'clock Central, and 3 o'clock Eastern. Covered all the time zones. There you go. Next week, Tuesday, live. We're also working on starting to line up, bringing in some of our really high, powerful friends in different areas from the feedback we're getting. We're compiling the right people that can go deeper into like private lending and the buyers, for instance, or money in general. And we'll be bringing those people on our lives. And then next Thursday, same time as this, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific, we'll have another webinar for you on another topic. The next one I'm pretty sure is going to be follow-ups, if I remember our plan. It's and what and how you should be doing and taking advantage of that, especially today. So everyone have an amazing day. I think, yep, we got to post it back up with the number. I seen the number was also posted in the comments below. Make sure to comment. Tell us anything else that you need or want. Huge value add today, gents. Hey, that's exactly the whole point of Real Estate Investor Beacon, to be a beacon of light in our entire industry.